Lord, I thank you for today. I thank you for giving Ms. Wanda the vision to produce you today. Lord, I pray that she won't grow tired, won't grow weary in doing good. Lord, I thank you for the provider of the food, and I pray for this food is nourishing for our soul. And you from my prayer, amen.
Y'all can just whatever you reach for it.
No problem.
No, ma'am. Thank you.
You can eat. I'll mend it for right now.
Okay, I'm gonna talk for just a little bit while Miss Catherine gets prepared. Um,
Prepared to put a little something in her stomach and then.
okay, as today we're doing about like last year October, I did a healing workshop here. And so we got a lot of good reviews from the healing workshop, and we was asked to do another one. So Miss Fanny called and asked me would I do something else, and I told her that I would. And so we decided that we would do a healing shop encore to go a little bit deeper from what we did the first time. And so today we're going to do the healing shop encore, and today we have speaker Miss Catherine Clayton, who's going to be speaking on the importance of boundaries. And we have Minister Alex Coleman, who's on his way, and he's going to be talking to us how to master our trauma. And then I'm going to be speaking on suffering in silence. The stuff is recorded today because we have people who couldn't attend, but they're live. And so, and our food was catered by Gracious Creation from Tupelo, Mississippi, and she always come in and do catering for us. So today, I just want everybody to be in tune to what's going on because healing is very important, and we have to heal in order to go to the next level in which God wants us to go. And so today, I'm just praying that everything goes according to the way it should go, which I know that it will. There's going to be a lot of important information that's going to be given today. On your table, you have note papers, you have index cards, you have sticky notes, you have pencils, you have candy to just kind of keep you in tune and you know what's going on. So if you want to take notes, there's paper there. But for the icebreaker today, and I know y'all are eating, for the icebreaker today, I'm asking that everybody takes index cards or a sticky pad, and I need you to tell me 3 I ams about yourself. And then we're going to also, when we go around and talk about the I ams, I'm going to ask you, what do you expect to get from this workshop on today? 3 I ams, and what do you expect to get from this workshop on today? And the bathroom is right there behind that door, and if anyone needs to use it, it's right there. And we're just gonna do that. Give y'all a few minutes to do that. And I know y'all still eating, and then we'll get started in just a few minutes. Hey, how you doing?
Hello, how are you?
All right. They're fixing. We're just getting started. You can fix something to eat. Hey, no. Oh, you can.
Alex is here.
Hey, how you doing? Am I supposed to be up right now?
No, you're not.
No.
We just decided to go ahead and get started.
We got you.
Miss Catherine is going first. Get you a break and get you something to eat.
Okay. I can't do it. I just got to drink some food. Huh?
Oh, Lord.
I did. What's up, kid?
Like who the hell is my home? Right now they're doing an icebreaker. They have to write 3 I ams about themselves, and then I'm gonna go around and ask, what do you expect to get from the workshop? And it has to be positive I ams, nothing negative. You can write nothing negative on your I ams. outside. Can you like fix that with you just broke it back. Oh no. It
How
got to
did
go
that even
back.
come out?
I don't know how it came out, but it did.
You can't take that off top of that for 1 second.
Mhm. Okay. Y'all ready? All right. You got it. Okay. Oh, my hand in the way.
Tighten that thing up. Yeah, it won't fall.
Something said, wait till Alex come before you break this thing, because I sure was gonna break it.
I doubt it.
All right. Okay. Let's go, Cheyenne. Your 3 I ams.
I am destined for greatness. I am a survivor. I am a servant. And expect from today understanding how to decompress, know my capacity, and heal from childhood traumas.
Okay. Next. You are nice, loving, and kind. Great. Helpful. What do you expect to learn from today? You don't know? Okay. Next.
I am loved. I am saved. And I am forgiven.
What do you expect to get from today?
I expect to become completely whole so I can
Okay. Next.
Okay, I'm happy. And then I actually go, I'm sad, but I like what Chinese say better, and I am a survivor.
Okay.
And then I'll put I am blessed.
Okay.
And what I hope to gain is to remember to realize that we're made in the image of God, so we should love ourselves in order to know how to better love others.
Okay. Next.
Child and Charles number to learn how to not let my past be my future.
Okay. Good. Next.
I put blessed. I'm a king's kid. I'm fearfully and wonderfully made, and I'm expected to gain better communication skills.
Ooh, is there something I do? Next.
I put I'm a child of God. I'm beautiful. I'm successful, and I expect to learn the blueprint on how to communicate properly as well as get a better understanding of the dynamics of relationship.
Ooh, that's good. Next. Next. Oh no, I'm coming. Well, I'll let her go next. Okay, you can go.
I am talented, I am beautiful, and I am kind. And what I'm praying for today to gain is forgiveness from God, from the Lord for all my sins.
Okay. Next. I didn't hear you. I'm intelligent. I'm worthy, and you kind. Okay, what you want to learn from today? You don't know? Okay. Alex?
Short. I learned that the other day. I was trying to get some off top at Walmart.
I know.
It worked out well. I am silly and I am hot.
Oh my.
And I expect to learn something new today. Don't know what it's gonna be,
Okay.
but it always happens.
So we are getting ready to get started, and I want to welcome Miss Catherine Clayton to the workshop today, and she's going to be talking to us about the importance of boundaries. And I got a worksheet I'm finna pass out to y'all.
Yes. And, I'll tell you a little bit about myself, because I want you to understand where I feel like I fit in. I've known Miss Yolanda for a while now. I have feel very blessed to know her, to know what she's capable of doing, and to know what other people mean to her. One of the things that I'm going to share today, Miss Glass never knew this, but I'm going to tell it to you, and then you'll know. I had to learn to like myself, Alex. You know why? My mother gave me away when I screwed her. I learned later that she had planned in her entire pregnancy. She named me for her sister. Her sister had no children, so she got me to her sister to be her child. Her name is Mary Catherine. And my Aunt Mary lived until last year. And so I got to have her for a long, long time. But there was something interesting that happened. Somebody already knew that I was worthy, and I liked it when you said that. They already knew that I was loved, because he was the one that loved me, and it was my daddy. My daddy went to my Aunt Mary's and said, I gotta have the baby back. He knew nothing about that she was giving the baby away. That was all he knew her. He knew nothing about it. And so he grew up an orphan, and family was everything to him. So today we're going to be talking about building boundaries. And guess what? We all have boundaries, whether we even realize it or not. For example, our boundaries is our personal space. You don't really know me, and I don't know you. I know you're a child of God, and I know I love you. But you know, I don't think that we're just going to run up to each other, grab each other, and start hugging, and all of that. Why? Because I have certain expectations that I expect to keep. You have certain expectations that you expect to keep, right? So our boundaries are those limits that we place on ourselves, so that so that we can be protected and we can be safe, and we can have a good self-control and a good self-image, because God likes that, doesn't he? He likes for us to know who we are, so that we can help others to know who they are. All right, you think about boundaries, and of course, probably one of the first things you think of is property. This is my yard, and if I want you in my yard, I'll let you know. Or this is my car, and if I want you, throwing garbage down in the floorboard of my car, I'll let you know. We just have certain things that belong to us. And when we have relationships, we consider that something that belongs to us as well. So, we know what boundaries are. And we have boundaries based on our personality. Now, I'm one of those that I may not know your name when I walk in the room, but I'm going to know your name when I leave. And my kids, they always think that's so strange. Mom, I'm talking to people she don't know. Well, there's nothing wrong with that. But the bad part is, and we have some wonderful little angels here with us today, but we tell them not to talk to strangers. And then I go right in, and then you say, oh, it's okay if you talk to her, you know. And sometimes we would even tell that tiny little thing, she's a friend of mine, you know. I like to brought somebody who knows, it's okay, you know, these people are good people, you know. But, we do that. Well, we have three basic types of personalities. And I am a psychologist, and that's one of the things I study is personality. And we say we have a rigid personality. Now, Mr. Alex, if members of the church where you might preach tomorrow or next week or whatever, you might see people out there and they'll just come up, they'll just talk to you like I've been doing, or they might kind of go, you know, it don't mean they don't like you. We sometimes think that, don't we? Because they're not talking to us. And we think, they don't like me, they're just not talking to me. Well, guess what? They are protecting their space, and they maybe don't like to talk to other people. And one of the reasons that they don't like to talk to other people is because they just feel more comfortable being by themselves. And we know which ones of our friends are that way, don't we? You know, we know who's kind of shy. And then you have those that have what we call a porous personality. Meaning they soak it up like a sponge. They come in talking and I'm going, hey, Ruby, tell me about, you know, your little buddy here with you today. Tell me about some of these other people, you know. And that's okay. But you know what? You know, you're in a little bit of danger when you do that. You know why? Because they'll say, oh, I don't feel good. And then the next thing you know, you get home and you're worrying about them and you just took on their problem. Don't we do that? Yes, we do. Absolutely. So we need to kind of guard that too. You know, that's part of the stuff we need to guard. And then we have people with healthy personalities. Now, I'm going to come in and I'm going to talk to you and I'm going to get to know who you are, and a little bit about you. And I'll warm up and tell you a little, maybe not a lot, but a little. And we'll get to talking now and share something different with you, which is okay. But what we say with people with a healthy personality, know what to share and what not to share. Okay? What makes them comfortable and what they're not comfortable. So we get, you know, in this way, and that's just fine. Now, I do need you more than I was a social worker for 5 years, and then I taught school for 45 years. So I'll probably stop right in the middle of this, Alex, and ask you a test question. What are boundaries? What are the three types of personality? You know, so gotta listen. You know, that's just how I am. Now then, Ms. Ruth, do you mind telling me, what is your relationship to that pretty little thing right there?
I'm her Gigi, her grandmother.
Okay, how about that? Well, look, this lady right here and I have something in common. How many of you in here have children, but no grandchildren? Okay. Now let me ask you a question, sweet girl. I'll go over to you and you know, you maybe telling me something about somebody did your baby wrong. What you gonna do? That's right, you're gonna hurt them, aren't you, huh? Yeah. Well, let me tell you what Miss Reagan and I are gonna do. We don't hurt you if you hurt one of our kids.
That's right.
You hurt one of our grandkids, you ain't gonna wake up in the morning. That ain't no threat, that's just a fact of life, that's who we are. Cause you know what, that grandbaby is a child of God.
That's right.
God gave you that grandbaby to protect.
That's right.
And you're gonna be starting setting them, if you haven't already, you probably set some boundaries for them, right? You can't go outside without somebody, you can't cross the street without me holding your hand. You know, we got these boundaries, and we didn't even know that that's what they were, that's what they are. They're boundaries, and you know what? We set these to keep us happy, safe, and then also committed. You ever known people who were not committed, they just, okay, you know. Now, we like stronger people, don't we? And, you know, you don't have to have a rule about everything, but the things that you do have rules about, you want them to be consistent and keep those rules, right? Communicate those rules to us, right? Absolutely. All right. So, we have 5 types of boundaries. 5 types. First of all, me and Alex has already talked about one of them. I guess I should have said Alex and I, but anyway, he knows who we are. And we already talked about one of them. Our person, right? Our physical boundary, our physical self, right? Now, I can share information about myself if I choose to. I can pat you on the back, and just like I really did like it when you said, you know, who was worthy. I think that's such a good word, and so something that our young people need to know,
Right.
and they need to know that they're worthy. Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am. And I'm gonna tell you, I have a rule, Miss Ruby. You probably like this rule because me and you kind of connected immediately. I have this rule. Don't you hurt one of my kids. But guess what, Alex? I taught 45 years. My husband and I figured out not long ago, that's a little over 11,000 students I taught. You ever walk through my door and I'm your teacher, you're my kid. So guess what? Somebody hurts you, they hurt me. And you know what? We need to be committed to that. All kids need to know that they are valued, they're important,
Right.
and that they are worthy of our love. How are they going to learn to trust and respect if they don't know that they're worthy? If they don't know that we care about them?
That's right.
And let me tell you something. You and I, Miss Linda, we're going to be, you know, if you was one of the students in my class, I will take care of you and we'll coordinate things and we'll sound off with each other. Now, if you do something wrong, I'm not going to tell you in front of all these people. That is just a disgrace. I'm going to say, Miss Linda, Miss me, you go over here and work on this bookcase a little bit. And while we're over there, I'm going to say, no, I really didn't like the way that came across. Let's do it a little different, okay? Then she learns to set some boundaries for herself, you know, because I don't want Miss Candy not to like me. You know, she's my teacher. I want her to like me. So we learn to do that. Then I have a little thing, and every kid, this is a true statement, that I have taught knows. You hurt one of my kids, and I'm talking about kids I've taught, my own kids that I go to, and I find out about it, I'm gonna ride my broom over to your house, and I'm gonna whoop you with that broom. You wanna see me come? Do you believe me? You wanna find out? That's what I thought. Yeah. Yeah. You know what? People only believe you when they learn to trust you and respect you.
That's right.
You're not believable until they know that. We have a saying at school, kids don't care how much you know till they know how much you care. Let me tell you something. I care about my kids. This little boy right here, he may not be in my room.
That's a
but guess
girl,
what?
Miss K.
Huh?
That's a girl.
Did I call him a boy? I've been calling you a boy the whole time. Well, what do I know? I had COVID, so I don't know anything. Just Linda and I talked about this, about everything after COVID. We're gonna be talking about COVID to our children and grandchildren, like our grandparents talked to us about the Great Depression, aren't we?
Yeah.
Yep, that's who we are. Sorry about that. Tell me your name again. Come on. Sure. Thank you, Sure. Okay. But anyway, so the physical boundaries we set. And remember that when we set boundaries, we're talking about boundaries so that we can interact in a relationship, okay? All right, what do you think besides physical boundaries? Emotional boundaries. Let me tell you something. You know what my daddy said about me one time? And it was true. My husband, I was gonna have our first child, and he was kicking me because I'm real kick ass, Johnny. You tickle me, and I just can't stand it, you know. I can't. Well, I said, stop, leave it alone. And in a minute, you know, I made you mad, didn't I? And my daddy said, son, you ever seen no girl mad? He said, no, sir, I can't say as I have. He said, I ain't got but one thing to say. When you do, you won't have to ask. But when I'm mad, you don't want to get mad. Just say, all right. Now, so our emotions. Now, we need to control our emotions, but at the same time, that is a good, healthy way to let others know they've overstepped their boundaries. They're too close to me. Just because you're a good old boy and you're out there and, you know, you won't ever see me alone, but if I walk around in a swimsuit and you decide you're going to whistle or say something vulgar to me, I'll tell you real quick. I ain't into that kind of stuff. So, you know, and it might come across that I'm emotional about it. Because, you know, don't we have a right as young ladies, as adults to be worthy of nice comments instead of shaggy ones? Yeah. Okay. So then, so physical and emotional. The next one is sexual. And that kind of goes with what we just said, because emotions and sexual goes pretty much together, as well as physical. All of it is. But you know, respect yourself. This is me. This body belongs to me. It don't belong to anybody else. I decide what clothes I'll wear, what activities I join in, and which ones I don't. And guess what? You, my peers, are not my boss. Don't just nag me about going to a party that they're going to be doing things that's not very very nice. Guess what? Don't go to a party that you don't want to see Jesus at. Just say it. You don't want to see Jesus there, don't go. Because whether you know it or not, he's there.
Right.
And guess what? He don't want to see his children any more than a mama wants to see their children at a party. They don't have any business going there. Let me tell you something. Don't need a designated driver. Be the designated driver. Communicate that to your friends. I'm not going to be having that drink, so you don't have to worry about me. If you're stupid enough to get involved with all those drinks, call me. I'll be at home sober. I can tell y'all a funny story. I didn't know this this is a true story. I did not know this until he got in college. My son in high school, he was the designated driver for his friends.
Really?
Well, let me tell you something, Ruby. He made a good thing out of that. He'd go from New Albany down to Tupelo, pick you up. He'd have the storage locked and crack the window about that much. You gotta hand him $40. He'll take you home.
Okay. You did a job out of it.
I made it that a little job. It made the kids think maybe before they called him, but before maybe they got to drink. But then he would take them back, go to McDonald's a couple times, get some coffee, make them walk in the cold outside, and then take them home. Go back with them next day to pick up the vehicle. But you know what? We just don't, we need, when we're setting boundaries, and remember, we're gonna talk about how we are supposed to set those boundaries, but first we know what to set them on. We need to know what we're willing to accept and what we don't want any part of, Okay, you need to remember that all the way through. Regardless if you're that one's age, I bet she can tell you right now, or her name is Sarge, she'll tell you if you just play with that toy or not, won't she? Absolutely. So, and, how quick she wants you to get that drink or cookie to her. Guess what, we can do something, we don't have to be loud, but we can do it. And then guess what, next time we see you get another one, you'll respect that, because you already know. And once we set them, we don't have to keep them. Now, there's one called, but you can't know, this has been boundary. It's called financial. No, we have to set boundaries on our finances, don't we? Amen, yes. And I'm gonna tell you something, it's not too young, too old to realize this. That money wasn't yours. Good Lord gave you the help to get that job. You give him his part first, so that you don't have to be wondering how much you got left. Yeah, right, Miss Lou.
That's right.
Okay, now then, another thing. Talking about a car a minute ago. You got a car, truck, or something to drive? How long did it take you to pay for it? Not maybe about 3 or 4 years? No?
No, I don't do that.
Okay.
I go buy mine off the side of the road.
Okay, fix it up. But I am a doctor, but I am not a car doctor. You know, we need them car doctors, don't think we don't. We need them mechanics. And then people like you that can fix them up. Hey, let's go business. I saw something right now here we did about go fix it up. It's a limo.
I'm sorry.
But let me tell you something. I have a saying, and y'all won't like it, but you'll remember me after today when I say it. Ask me if you can borrow my car.
Can I borrow your car?
I'd rather you borrow my toothbrush.
Wow.
In other words, you ain't getting my car. Isn't that gross? But you know what? Got my point across, didn't I? So, well, we already know that's one thing that everybody's got to set right. We're not gonna worry about that. Okay. But, you know, maybe you do got a car, and maybe you say, okay, I'm not gonna be long with this thing. But now, are there exceptions, and can we agree to make an exception? Miss Linda needed to borrow my car because hers was not working, and she had a neighbor that a family member was in the hospital, or worse, is going to the funeral. Yeah, Miss Linda, I just borrow my car. And, you know, but, you know, they have to be, before we make an exception to any of our boundaries, we have to communicate and make sure it's sound and worthwhile. All right, and the last one is, set some boundaries on your time. Joanne, how many hours in a day? 24. How many of those do you like to sleep? About 8 of them? Yeah. Like to be with your friends, at least 3 or 4 of them, maybe 2 or 3. Yes, on how they're acting. This week, maybe none, and maybe next week 2 or 3. But our kids, I want to be with them. Okay, so we've got to set some boundaries on our time. Let me tell you something. Everybody in this room, remember this. Number 1, save time for who? God, and then save time for yourself. Because you're not going to be good to anybody else if you don't have some time for yourself.
That's right.
And a lot of times, probably more times than not, when we're by ourselves, that is our time with God. And so you can set a lot of it aside for God. Because, you know, we just need that. That time is precious to Him and to us. Okay, test time. What are boundaries, anybody?
You said, what are they?
What are boundaries?
God, the Lord wants to think we articulate in person.
Very good. boundary zone? What, you don't have to name any people.
I know, emotions,
That's right.
time,
Time,
money,
money,
physical,
physical,
sexual.
sex. Very good. Okay, now then. Why do you think it's important to set boundaries on each of these things?
It keeps you balanced.
It keeps you balanced, would you say that?
So not we get ran over.
That's right. Not somebody run over us, you know? They'll intimidate you. They'll just try to be, you know. Let me ask you a question. I do a lot of anti-bullying talks. Any of you ever, first of all, are any of you bullies?
I used to be.
Okay. But how many of you were ever bullied?
Me? But that's why I became one.
Right.
Yeah, I just became the terrorist instead of getting terrorized.
Right. Well, let me tell you something. I was bullied. I grew up, I was the fifth child, my mother wanted four. You've already heard the results of that. And everything I owned was hand-me-downs. I literally remember the first store-bought dress that I had. I was making valedictorian speech at our little eighth grade school, our eighth grade, I was in eighth grade.
Oh, you were smart.
I had to take the price tags off, I'd never seen price tags. I didn't know what kind of tags came on the outfit. I didn't know they had washing instructions. I didn't know. So, but there was a girl, you know, there's always at least one. And she'd pull on my clothes like this. Was this thought for you? How nice is that? How big did I feel? How worthy did I feel? Well, guess what? She did that from the time I was about 7th grade till I was in 10th grade. And I just made up my mind one night. I don't even know how I even came up with it. I put a stop to that. I made me some boundaries. You're not gonna make fun of me anymore. If you are, it's not gonna be out loud and in front of me. You might do it behind my back, but you know, not to my face. Well, guess what? We was in the dressing room now. I went to one of these real sophisticated schools that had sophisticated dressing room. We had our own nail to hang our clothes on. And my clothes was hanging on my nail. We had the same ones every day. I came in, I opened the door, and I always did, I don't know why, but I looked right at my nail. And no clothes on. What? I looked down on the floor. There they are. Did I know who put them there? Absolutely. Well, I go over, and this is a bench sitting right here, okay? And that's my nail right there. So I sit down. There's my clothes. Oh, Glenda. Miss Know-it-all, Miss the tissue, kind of leaned over to pull her shoe on. And when she did, I stuck my hand in the back of her neck, pushed her face all the way down to the floor and said, when you come up, you better have my clothes in your hand.
Yeah.
And she did.
Yeah.
How many times did she bully me after that?
No.
So were you the bully at that point?
I was not.
Oh, okay, well, I ain't never been bullied. If that's what you're saying, like,
But let me tell you, on the one-on-one, about 2 days later, I get to her, mind myself. Look, we just the only ones in the, you know, out in the hallway, and I said, let me tell you something. I play you anywhere on that ball board, and I might score you on any test any teacher up here gives us. It's not necessary that we be friends, but we do have to get along. Because we're on the same team. That's the only communication about that I had to give. But I learned to set that boundary. I didn't have to be mean. I guess you could call that mean, but in a way, it's taking up for yourself. So, you know, you can call it what you want to. But I did go home at 9. Now, with my daddy was my hero. He was my everything. Whether he dead and gone now, he had about a 5th grade education. True to life. I might have a PhD, but that man was 10 times smarter than me, or 10 times smarter than I'd ever been. Okay? Let me tell you. I told this later. That man could add up figures this long, you know. Never miss anything.
Without a calculator?
Without a calculator. Do you know, true story? He had a friend, I was a banker there in the corner. And guess what? He did all the time. He came about my daddy to come after work one night and make sure he had the figures right. Now, you know, whether you realize it or not, guys, your character and your reputation are going to follow you forever. Do you know the difference in your character and in your reputation? Your character is who you are when nobody else is around. Your reputation is what people think that you are. Okay? So, you're not going to get, you're not going to fool anybody. You're not fooling about your reputation. You're not fooling about it. That is who you are. That's who you know yourself to be. No playing around about it, isn't that right? So, well, let me tell you something. Now then, let's look at 10 ways that we can set boundaries and do boundaries. Would somebody be willing to read one of them to us? Read the first one. Let's keep. We don't have to go in order, but let's do go in order just to make it easy on everybody. What's the first?
Enjoy some self-reflection.
Enjoy some self-reflection. You know, she had a good little activity. Tell us 3 things about you, you know, very positive things. Well, guess what? Even when you go for a job interview, you know what they're going to ask you? What's your strengths and weaknesses? They're going to expect you to know that. What are your strengths and weaknesses? And you should know. Well, what's one of your strengths? What's your name, that girl? Hey, what's one of your strengths, sir? Okay. What's one of your weaknesses?
I'm not very focused.
Okay. And that's okay to a certain extent, you know.
ADHD.
Oh, that's okay.
I wasn't diagnosed, but I know that.
Okay, we know. We know who we are. You know what? Self-reflection. Sometimes we go to bed at night and we don't like ourselves too much. But then you reflect back and, you know, just ask yourself, who have I helped lately? Was I able to ask for help when I needed it? You know, it's okay that you ask for help. Because you know what? When you ask for help, you're making somebody else feel good and you're getting better. So, nothing wrong with that. Hello there. So, what's the next one? Anybody?
Start small.
Start small. We don't have to remake ourselves all together. We can start very small. You know, we know what we like, what we don't like. And just one thing at a time. How many steps you gonna take anyway at one time?
One.
That's right. Put one foot in front of the other. Have you heard that all your life? And you're gonna take one step at a time. One. I love that song. One step at a time, please Jesus. All right, start small. Set them early. Why do you want to set your boundaries early? So the people that will know who you are. Absolutely. Be consistent. You know, I like that word, consistent. How many of you have teachers that one day that you do this and the next day they put a rock on your head and try to do next day, you go across the street and you're gonna be in the office. No, you can't do that. We gotta be consistent. If I tell you today that you can't talk to me like that, and the next day I let you talk to me like I'm, some type of heathen, well, what are you gonna think of me? You gonna think I don't have any boundaries at all? Okay, consistency. Create a framework. What in the world do you think that means? Create a framework. Your boundaries are dependent upon the type of relationship. You see what we're saying, what we're saying here, the framework. Your family members, your friends. Sometimes we think we can just treat our brothers and our sisters any old way, just,
We do.
and we do that, don't we? But sometimes we treat the ones we love the most the worst.
Yes, we do.
Why? It's that acceptable. Guess what? It's not acceptable.
Wow.
Then it says feel free to add extras. Once you got your stuff, in certain boundaries, and you kind of know what next needs to be next, what that next step needs to be. I really want to caution you on number 7. Be aware of social media. It's not going to go away. I don't care if you take it down. It's going to be somewhere. Somebody's going to know it. If you put it on social media, it needs to be something that you don't mind having to stand behind, okay? If you make a mistake, own it. That needs to be part of your boundaries. If you make a mistake, own it. Yes, I did do that, and I'm sorry, and I'm going to try to do better. Okay? Number 8, it says talk, talk, talk. What does that mean? Communicate. We're going to communicate. We're going to send messages. And that, hey, what's your name, big girl? Out. Hey, let me see if I can send you a message. Can I send you a message without saying anything at all? Oh, yeah. Mamas and daddies can't. Let me tell you something. I knew that look. I never forgot that look. It's been many years since my daddy's gone to meet the Lord. But guess what? I ain't forgot that look yet. I remember that look. Be your biggest champion. That's important. What's that important? Be your biggest champion. If you don't like yourself, how do you expect anybody else to like you, right? You gotta like yourself. All right. Gain some perspective. Know what you're looking at. Be able to sum it up. Make your decisions for your boundaries are gonna be. And guess what? Stick with it. Okay. All right. I could tell you like the Army does. This is what we're gonna talk about. This is what we did talk about. All of that. But I'm gonna show you something. Show you exactly why it's important to know your boundaries. All right, Miss Linda, come up right up here. Do you mind coming? Miss Ruby, you want me to let you have a slide? Or, okay, she'll take your place, okay? Come on, buddy. You four, come right here. Right here. Now, we're going to show y'all something that you may have never thought about. Did you know your boundaries really are your rights?
Right.
They are your rights. I have a right for you not to talk to me that way. I have a right to be heard. I have, okay, come on. What's your mouth? All right. Okay. I'll tell you what we're going to do with you. Come up right here. It's like, like this one. All right, now everybody, I'm gonna do something, and all you guys have to do right now. So everybody in the room, just watch me. Okay? Now, do I have a right to walk up and down? Do I have a right to swing my arms?
Yep.
Now, all three three of you do it. Stay in this area. Don't be in the back.
You can do it. She like, no.
Okay. Do you know where mine right?
In personal space right there.
That's right, I'm in just her personal space, and guess what? Mine rights in. Taking my nose. Got any business sticking my nose in your business? I don't think so. I don't have your bills, so why am I sticking my nose in your business? Right? So guess what? Guess what? I got a right to do this, but you got a right for me not to do it, don't you? And guess what? That's why you need to learn to voice your boundaries. Tell me what you like, what you don't like, so that I know. And then the next time if I mess up, it's my fault. It's not my fault until I know.
Okay.
You see what I'm saying? So that's why we need to do it early and be consistent, so that when we do something, we know. Do you know? What, I'm gonna ask you a question, and if I'm wrong, just tell me so that don't happen where I go to. How many of you, right now, let's just say you have a Miss Arnold that goes to church with you, how many of you know right now where Miss Arnold is gonna be sitting tomorrow? You do, don't you? Uh-huh. Do you know, we've got friends that haven't visited our church in 20 years, and they still know where to come in and find us. Because we're gonna be at the same place. That's consistency, y'all. And there's something good about consistency. Something good about self-reflection. Something very good about feeling worthy. And something very good about being yourself. I hope I did go over my time.
Really good. Thank you. Okay, do anybody have any questions or comments? I want to be sure that I give people the opportunity to speak. 'Cause, last time I think that this was one of the things on the evaluation is that we needed to take the time to ask questions and talk. So is there anybody that has any questions or comments or any issues with boundaries that y'all needed to be elaborated on, or is everybody okay?
I have a question.
Okay.
Sometimes when you meet up with people and they get in your space and stuff, and you know they try to intimidate you to keep from saying anything, how would you handle that right there?
Okay? They do it, but they don't say anything. Is that what you're saying?
Well, sometimes you know they try to intimidate you, you know, to keep from saying anything.
Yeah.
You know,
Right.
or they try to make you feel bad if you say something.
Well, you know, one of the things that I would do is I'd say, you know, let's just say I put my purse here and they sit over there. They keep pushing my purse down and they, you know, just think it's in the way. I might say to them, is my purse bothering you? I can move it. You know, make them aware that you're aware. Does that make sense?
I have a question from online. It says, what do you do when you set boundaries, but certain people ignore them?
Very good. Okay, you set those boundaries and then it's okay that you set them without saying anything, but then if they violate your privacy or they violate something you just say to them, that's not the way I do. I want us to do you know, I have to do things differently to be able to put up with myself. You know, it's okay to blame it on yourself, but just not going to accept that. For example, if anybody had a friend that say, maybe in the past they had loaned money to, but then they found out they were doing things with their that money they didn't need to be doing. Then it's okay to quit and loan them that money.
Okay. Anybody else?
Y'all got some business cards here, and I want you to, for the tag one, there's some, there's kind of some information on it, just
Make sure.
feel free to tag one. And
Not sure if Facebook.
I do programs on things like what we just did, and also, bullying, child abuse, and, domestic violence. So if you ever need anybody else, we'll look on, that domestic violence.
All right, so we thank Ms. Catherine for her and her excellent wisdom and knowledge on boundaries. Now we are going to hear from Alex Coleman. And he is going to talk on how to master your trauma. So you want me to go back live?
All right. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Go ahead.
Look, how's everybody doing today? How's everybody doing today? Okay. It's all right. I was gonna throw candy like I was in parade to see if they'll get that excited. Anyway, I was asked to speak on mastering your trauma, and I just kind of did a lot of praying about it because it's something that I run into a lot because I mentor about 80 children in the Oxford community here and there. Probably yearly, I have about 50 to 80 kids that I mentor, and I run into a whole lot of issues that I have to kind of help them through, and that's okay. And I think when it comes to trauma, or the word trauma is defined as something that even the human emotions have a problem overcoming, you know? So I think everybody has had something, you know? And it don't have to be like as big as yours, and trauma don't have to be it just is real gut-wrenching event. It can be something small, but I get all of my learning on life from my Bible, so that's the direction that I'm going to go this morning. That's who taught me how to master and overcome my trauma and how to become good at being who I was. So I'm going to start right there. For people who have read the Bible or heard the story about Moses and the children of Israel, they were in a place called Egypt, and they were trapped in this place. They were enslaved to these people. They had to do a lot of hard labor, and the reason that they put that hard labor on them was they were hoping that they could hurt those people so much that they wouldn't just continue growing and populating the place. But when God has his hand on something, you really can't stop it anyway. So they were in this place, and God was leading them by day and by night. And finally, God frees them out of this place called Egypt, and they're on their road to a new life, what the Bible referred to as a land flowing with milk and honey, whatever. Well, they finally get to a place where they got jealous of the people that were around them. They said, we want a king just like everybody else. And when they asked for a king, God said, I'm going to give you a king, but he's going to punish you pretty good, too. All right? So he gave him a man named Saul. Saul started, like, really building the country, but at the same time, he was putting heavy burdens on the people of Israel. Eventually, God got sick of Saul's crap, because Saul was just disobedient. He was the king, but he was disobedient. The priest was like, hey, look, I need to do a sacrifice, but you need to wait till I get there. Well, Saul was over there tapping his toes saying, well, he ain't here yet, so we might as well just go ahead and do it. So they did it. And then God got angry because all of a sudden the priest showed up and said, all right, I'm ready to do the sacrifice. Saul was like, you didn't come on time, so we already did it. God said, okay, I'm sick of your crap, Saul. I'm going to get you out of the way. He got him out of the way, and he gave the kingship to a guy named David. I'm going to give y'all a little history. So David became the king. The Bible refers to David as a man after God's own heart. So to me, that was going to be the dude right there, because everything good. He's a man after God's own heart. Oh man, he's going to be the guy. Well, David said, God, I want to worship you with all my heart and stuff. He wrote the 23rd Psalms. I know a lot of y'all know it. The Lord is my shepherd. I shall not want. He makes me lie down in green pastures, all that good stuff. And he wrote all these beautiful songs. Psalm chapter 3. Many are they that try to slay me. Many are they who come up against me. But you, God, are a shield for me. You're my glory. You're the lifter of my head. And he wrote all of this stuff, these beautiful songs. Psalm chapter 150, where he was telling everybody, praise God with everything you got. Praise him with the drums. Praise him with the trumpet. Use the cymbal. If you got a shoe, hit your friend in the face with it. It don't matter. Make a sound. Let everything that got breath praise the Lord. Right? So David was like building this thing for God. And I was like, David gonna be the man. But I continued in the story. And David said, so I just wanted to build a house for God. A temple for the Lord. Somewhere where we can meet with him. That's all David wanted. He said, one thing I desire is to just dwell in the house of the Lord, right? So he gets to this place where he done collected all these trees. He was a king. He collected all these trees. He collected gold. He collected silver. He collected diamonds. He collected rubies. He got the most expensive things in the whole wide world and got all this stuff collected and said, now I'm going to get a chance to build this house for God. Well, God looked at David and God said, David, you got too much blood on your hands, boy. You killed too many folks. You killed Uriah, took his wife, had an illegitimate child. I can't let you build my temple. David goes, God said no, but no. So David just was like, okay, well, I got you. Well, eventually, the children of Israel ended up doing something that God didn't like, and they ended up back in slavery again. Well, while they was in slavery, guess what happened? Solomon was born. This kid he was of Jewish descent in Ethiopia, Bathsheba. Solomon was born, and Solomon said, well, God, I'm going to do what my dad didn't do. I'm going to build a temple. And God said, Solomon, you got it. The Bible says Solomon built the most immaculate building ever on the face of the earth. It had glass and crystal floors. It had every post in the building was made out of pure gold. The chair that the king sat in had diamonds and rubies embedded all inside of this golden chair. The stairwell was ivory all the way up to the top. It had a river that ran from the temple, and it went all the way through this temple, and it watered the garden on the other side. He had created just an oasis in the desert. You know what I mean? A beautiful place. And this temple was the place that God showed up to meet them. The Bible says when Solomon got done with the temple, boy, they danced. But when they went into slavery that second time, the people who took them into slavery came and tore that temple down. You know why? It was made out of gold, diamonds, rubies. They stole all the stuff. They took all of it. Well, that's where my story picks up today. My story picks up right there when they were coming out of slavery for the second time. And the temple was destroyed. They had took all the gold, took all the silver, took all the diamonds, took all the rubies. And here's where my story picks up when they were freed from slavery the second time. It says in the second year after their coming to the house of God at Jerusalem, in the second month, Zerubbabel, the son of Shealtiel, and Jeshua, this is in Ezra chapter 3, matter of fact, the son of Zodiac, made a beginning, together with the rest of the kinsmen, the priests and the Levites, and all who had come from Jerusalem from slavery. They appointed the Levites from 20 years and older to build the temple again. All right? Oh, Lord. Okay. All right. He gets up here with me, y'all just excuse him. He probably gonna try to hang around my feet and stuff. We'll see. Okay. You might have to take him in another room. Anyway, and Yeshua, the son of his brothers, and all this stuff, they supervised these people, right? So when they came out of slavery the second time, let me sum this up. They said, all the men who are 20 years and up, we're going to supervise y'all, and we're going to rebuild this temple that God had built. Y'all remember the temple I'm talking about? What was it made out of? Diamonds, gold, rubies, all this expensive metal. Matter of fact, when they estimated how much it cost to build that building, they said it's more expensive than any building ever built on planet Earth to this very day. Yeah, we build our buildings with concrete, metal, and glass. Think about it. They built this with gold, silver, and all that. And for the Lord, all right? And so they went to supervise these men. Verse 10, and when the builders laid the foundation of the temple of the Lord, the priests in all of their garments came forward with their trumpets like they did the first time. They had their cymbals, and they came and they started praising God and saying, praise the Lord for his mercy endures forever. And they started praising God. And they sang and they were praising God and giving thanks to the Lord. They said, for he is good and his mercy endures forever. And all the people shouted with a great shout. And they were praising the Lord because the foundation of the house of the Lord was laid. But many of the priests, the Levites, and the heads of the fathers' houses, the old men who had seen the first temple, they wept with a loud voice when they saw the foundation of this temple being laid. Though many shouted loud for joy, people could not even distinguish the sound of the joyful shout from the sound of the wailing and weeping of the elders. For the people shouted with a great shout, and the sound was heard very far away. All right? You see a picture of one group of people. All right? They had just got released from slavery. Now, mind you, a lot of those children who were in their 20s and 30s probably were born while they were in slavery, right? So they didn't get to see what? They didn't get to see the first temple. They didn't see all of the gold and all of that. They didn't see that. So when they came out here and they took some clay and some dirt and they laid the foundation for this second temple, they was like, yeah, we about to build the house of God. And the old man was like, what is that? You know what I mean? Think about this now. You looking and you cheering. Me and my brothers, we cheering. We glad we about to build a temple on the Lord. But guess what? The elders, the older people, they saw the old one. And all of a sudden they had trauma. They had an experience in their heart that they didn't even know how to act. They were crying. And the Bible said that it was so loud that you could not decipher the cheering from the crying. Have you ever told somebody something they acted like it wasn't nothing? It kind of adds to their trauma. Because you share it with them, and I can see these old men saying, but look at this. And then boys like, yeah, we just laid a slab of concrete with clay. And they like, no, you don't understand. This used to be gold. This one slab used to be worth billions of dollars. And now, y'all got some dirt and some clay and y'all are cheering. But y'all don't understand how my heart feels, right? When we think about trauma, you always got to say, I want to master it to the point that my trauma can help somebody else. No. I turned my head when I said that to myself. I'm serious. How in the world can I use the pain, or how in the world could the pain that's been with me all my life be used for somebody else when I'm having such a big issue with it? That's tough. Well, how do I master that? The first thing God told me to tell you all today is you have to acknowledge it. Acknowledgement. Just say, hey, I acknowledge that I've been through some rough times in my life. And it's okay to go through rough times in your life.
That's right.
Everybody has been there in one way or the other, right? The biggest danger I've ever seen in human beings is the ability to lie to yourself. That is exactly why African Americans were in slavery in the first place. Because there were some preachers who were Southern Baptists who were also in the Klan. Now, how does that work? I'm preaching the word of God, but not to y'all. This freedom that I'm preaching about is not for you if your skin is dark. How does that work, right? So you think about this. You had to be able to lie to yourself and say, this is okay what I'm doing. To be a pastor who was a racist, you have to be able to lie to yourself. You see how dangerous that is? You see why it's important that we silence voices of recklessness when they start coming? Because Adolf Hitler, what he did before he went after those Jews, is he started making cartoons about them, making them look real silly and stuff, you know? Look at the Jewish people. He started making cartoons. I think I'm playing. He started with cartoons, then he started putting flyers up. He dehumanized Jewish people. And he made everybody over there say, them ain't even people. And then when he said kill them, it was easy, because they're not even people anymore. That's why it's important that you hush the voice of aggression, you hush those voices of foolishness as quick as they come. I'm serious. You have to do that, right? It's dangerous to lie to yourself. Lying to yourself, even in about your own trauma, it's going to cause you to have anxiety. Because now you got a battle going on within, because self knows that you're lying. I'm telling you now. It's something inside of us that be saying, nah, that just hurt your feelings. It came out as anger, but you should have said that hurt my feelings. Right? All right? So, first, acknowledge it. The second part of overcoming trauma, you gotta kind of dissect it. All right? The reason I say dissect it is because when I was going through overcoming my trauma, I thought I was dealing with an anger issue. And I was always trying to figure out, okay, when I get angry, count to 10. When I get angry, talk to my counselor. When you get angry, go do this. Go listen to what. When you get angry, go do this. Man, I was walking around looking like the Incredible Hulk and was still mad. So what good was that? What good was that? They were trying to give me things to do to overcome my anger, and the reality was I hadn't dissected it deep enough yet. I had to do a little bit of digging to figure out, why am I angry like that? Why do I have to continue to argue within myself about stuff that I'm going through, And why is it 20 years later and I'm still hurting about certain things? You have to dissect it in order to find out the root of the problem. Because anger wasn't nothing but a fruit, If you ever saw a tree before, you go up there and you grab that peach, and you bite that peach, and it's sweet, you ain't thinking nothing else about the rest of that tree. You just walk off, right? But how about this? That peach had a stem. And say, okay, here was the root of the problem right here. That I went through this when I was 4 years old, 5 years old, 6 years old. I went through this. And then all of a sudden, me walking around 4, 5, and 6, not even thing, you have to begin dealing with all of those little pieces, one by one. See, I'm a builder. I build houses. So if you ever see a house, you can appreciate the house. You can say, oh, that's a nice house right there. But see, you can't appreciate the guy who was on his knees leveling that concrete, sweating in that sun that's out there right now. I'm serious. That sun is out there right now. Yeah. All right, I don't believe you. Go out there. It's out there right now, and it ain't gonna play with you. All right, check this out. Check this out. Y'all can't appreciate the guy who laid the concrete. Y'all can't appreciate the guy who was putting the framework together. Y'all can't appreciate the guy who hung all of this sheetrock, and really can't appreciate the guy that took that mud and he took that mud and he made all of these little pieces of sheetrock look like one big piece to y'all. But see, my elbow still hurt from that from doing it last week. My elbow still hurt, right? So being a builder, y'all believe this boy.
We
Oh,
got kids, so we understand.
okay, all right.
Right.
So being a builder, you have to begin dealing with all of those little pieces. You have to think about your trauma as you think about building something. Because one little small thing causes you to have a whole bunch of other different things. I had confusion, I had misunderstanding, depression, sadness, anger, and it was all because of something that went on when I was 4 years old, 5 years old, 6 years old, you know what I'm saying? And as I got older and started to realize what happened to me, it turned into anger. And that part of me turned into a really, really angry part, almost into murder. I'm talking about to the point that I said, you know what? Some people don't even need to be on this earth anymore. If that's how you're going to treat people, I think I need to take care of you. I'm serious. That's how my mind went. That's how protective I became of other people around me. That guy there don't even need to be on this earth no more. And I kid you not, it was a rough road. Let me go on to my number 4. In order to master trauma, you have to be in community. What is community? Let me define community. Community is a body or a group of people who all have your best interest at heart. That's the community you have to be a part of. The reason I say that community, because I know a lot of us have been in community where we tell our friends our aches and our pains, and we thought she was real close to us, and the moment she got mad, we heard about what we told her in secret from that person, and that person, and that person, and that person. You know what I'm saying? Because you weren't in the right community. You have to be careful. I wrote it down because it made so much sense. You have to be careful. You got to know what you can tell and what you can't, and to who.
That's right.
I got some friends right now that I communicated everything that I've been through with, and I know I'm safe. But I got some that I know I'm going to have to bust their head if I told them. Just being honest. I'm just being honest. If I told him, he's going to go and leak it. He's going to get in his girl gossip group and he's going to tell it all. And I'm going to uppercut him so hard, right in the cheek. So that's the reason I don't do it. Joe, don't tell from the scene. Oh my God. This boy. You don't want to lose his freedom now. But don't let me tear it up. Okay. You must be in community. Think about this. If any of y'all are Bible readers, you'll realize one thing that's real cool in the Bible. The Bible tells you to honor your father and mother. No doubt. I love that part. But if you look at the stories in the Bible, there were very few people in the Bible who were raised by their father and mother. Very few. Elisha had Elijah who walked by and mentored him. You know? Jesus had 12 guys that were not his children that he mentored. Paul had a guy named Gamaliel who taught him. Paul mentored Timothy, Philemon, it was a bunch of them, Onesius, all the more weird names in the New Testament. Paul mentored most of those guys. He wasn't their kids. He wasn't their father. So when I say community, it's probably not gonna be your immediate family. And I didn't kind of figure that out just from experience. I'm sorry to say it, but that blood has a way of being so familiar with you that they don't take seriously what you say sometimes.
That's right. Exactly.
They've been around you too long. And you try to say something that's really meaningful to you, and they be the ones, oh boy. And now you gotta uppercut them. No, I'm just like, look, don't uppercut nobody, y'all. Leave that to me. All right. So you have to be in community in order to heal from trauma, in order to find the way through trauma. This is another thing that God showed me. He said you gotta find the purpose through perspective. All right? Find the purpose of your trauma through perspective. This is what's so funny about that. These old men in my story earlier, they were mad, crying, wailing, weeping because all of a sudden they got a dirt temple and they had a golden temple. Right? Let me show y'all what God did. God shows up. Later on, they were probably dead. But they had people flustered about this all through history. But in Isaiah, God shows up and God says, I really don't even want to dwell in no brick temple anyway. See? Y'all sitting here crying and y'all weeping and y'all wailing about a building when the real temple that I was trying to get y'all to understand was what? Your body. Your body is the temple that I wanted to dwell in. I wanted to live inside of y'all, and I was just giving y'all an example through the building, and y'all took it to heart. We want our building back. God said, I don't care nothing about that gold building, nor do I care about this dust building. The building that I cared about in the first place, that y'all all traumatized about, is your body. The Bible says your body is his temple. The body is the temple of the Holy Spirit. The body is where God lives. God lives through us. God's speaking to y'all through me. You know what I'm saying? You're going to speak to me through God. God one day going to give you something to tell me. You better tell me. Don't, man, if God tell you to tell me something, tell it. You know? I don't care what it is. I walked up to a girl one day at Walmart, and I was just standing there looking at this lady. She had to be in her 50s or something, and she was standing at the, I was going to get me some ice cream. So I walked up, and she was just holding the door and just looking in the ice cream thing. So I'm waiting there to get my cream, my little, what's the thing called? They look like an ice cream cone with nuts on the top. Yeah, I don't know. It's called a drumstick. Yeah. Woo! Y'all don't understand unless you had one. I was waiting right there to get my drumsticks. And she was just standing there with the door. And she was looking. And I'm like, okay, she'll be out the way in a minute. I stood there for at least 2 minutes, holding my buggy, waiting on her to get out the way of the door. I started getting mad. And as I started getting mad, I started feeling the Spirit of God kind of pulling on my heart. I started feeling the Spirit of God just pulling on my heart. And I stayed there and looked at her for about another minute. And I was like, God, am I supposed to call that 911? Is she having a seizure? Like, what's going on? She must have took some gum and she stuck. Like, is something going on? Like, something ain't right. And I'm standing there and I'm looking at this woman. And finally, God said, tell her that I love her. I said, I don't know this woman. And see, I'm very funny with my boundaries. I don't ever want to even use the word love. Period. I have that issue right now with my wife. Because I have to say it. I mean, I love my wife for real. I love her. But I kind of always had for some reason, I had a boundary issue with using that word. Probably connected. Probably connected. My boundary issue probably is connected to what I went through as a child. It probably is. Something to do with somebody who told me that they love me. You know what I mean? And what I saw versus what I heard. And so I'm real careful at using the word, and I've been careful at using it with everybody. And now I'm married. Now I got a problem using it with my wife. Ain't that weird?
No, it's not weird.
I'm getting better though. All right. So anyway, I tell this lady, I said, ma'am, and she did not look at me. She was still standing over the door. I said, I just want you to know that God loves you. And she looked at me and turned and she grabbed me so hard and like knocked me backwards. And she was like, thank you. I said, okay. Now she really done broke the boundaries. You know what I'm saying? I'm falling over my buggy, rolling it backwards. The old man behind us looking around, he opened the door. I almost ran into him, and I'm trying to get out the way. And she was crying real tears. And she said, thank you. And I said, ma'am, he loves you, you know? And she went on to tell me the story about the divorce that she was currently going through. Crazy part is, millionaire. Money to the roof. That close to taking her life. It was on her mind when she opened that ice cream door. And that's where she was stuck right there. So if God tells you to say something, say it. You know? I shared a whole lot of things with her. I still talk to her to this very day. I took some kids to on a trip a couple years ago. She gave $3,700 to that cost. She did. I needed a certain amount. She paid the rest of it. All right? So you got to find purpose through perspective. God changed the perspective on how those old men were looking. He said, I don't care nothing about that, what y'all crying about. I want it to be living inside of you, right? These are my two last things. You have to compartmentalize feelings and forgiveness.
Say that again.
You have to compartmentalize feelings and forgiveness. If you do not compartmentalize, and when I say compartmentalize, I mean separate the two. Separate your forgiving and your feelings, all right? And when I say compartmentalize those things, you take them and you put them in a box of their own. That's the best way to say it. If you do not compartmentalize your feelings, you will think that you have not forgiven. Because your feelings are going to last for some time after you forgive. It ain't like as soon as you forgive somebody, you're going to be like, oh, I'm happy. Did you all see that? That ain't even a depressing issue to discuss no more. I'm just so happy about all the stuff I went through in my life. You know, no, it don't work like that. That's so the worst thing I heard somebody say in my life, and they still be saying to these very days, and I stop them every time. You need to forgive and forget. I'm not gonna say amen, Reverend, till you acknowledge me. You cannot forget. Your traumatic experiences in life, they are designed to be with you. And when I say with you, they're going to help somebody along the way. When you overcome something, the stone that was on top of you becomes a stepping stone for you to go up a little higher. You know? When you overcome all of those things that had you in their place, when you begin to overcome those traumatic experiences, it's just going to be a whole different world. Your view gonna be different, right? We get to the last part. And the last thing I would say is everybody has to give God somewhere to live. You gotta give God somewhere to live. And when I say that, he tells these old men who are weeping and crying about this temple, he said, I don't want this building. I want you. That's the temple that I was looking to live in. And when you go and study the temple, you'll find out that the temple was for one purpose when it came to me and you. We were to come to the temple with a sacrifice. We will come to the temple to give something to God. God, this is all I got. I give it to you. That's what we came to the temple for. To give something to God. Now watch this. When we came to give something to God, and we say, God, you want a sacrifice. God wants something. God wants something that meant something to you. Right?
That's good.
So that's the reason in the beginning of time when Cain and Abel gave them sacrifices, only one of them was accepted. Because the Bible says Cain got some stuff out the field, but Abel went and got his best. All right? So he got the best one. So God say, I want something that's worth something to you when you come into the temple, right? Now watch this. If you give God your whole life, that's the only thing that we have at this point that's worth something to you. You can give your money in church. You can go help an old lady across the street. You can give to the poor. You can do all of that stuff. But God said, I want your life. I want your whole life. All that you are. All that you've been through. I want you to offer it up as a sacrifice to me. And when you offer it up as a sacrifice, you got to give it to me. That's the majority of people's problem. Because during the sacrifice, there was this cool moment. If you study the Jewish, I love studying my Bible. When you study the Jewish, it was a cool moment. It was called the moment of presentation, right? The moment of presentation. So this happened when you was given a sacrifice. But let me show you when that moment was. Presentation. Present your body, a living sacrifice, right? Present your body, a living sacrifice. The moment of presenting or presentation. I want to give you this, okay? I want to give you this. Here, take it. Have I gave it to her yet?
No, you still holding on.
She got her hands on.
But you still holding on.
Oh, I'm holding on to it. Guess what? This is when God can deal with your trauma, is when you do like this. Not just like this, but this is the moment right here. That's the only way God can deal with you. It's the moment you let it go. You cannot continue holding on to something because what happens a lot of times, God said, we take our trauma and we make it an idol.
That's right.
And when we take our trauma and make it an idol, we live through the trauma because my dad wasn't in my life. That's why I'm a hardcore murderer right now. I be watching those prison shows and I look at them and how they be acting all mean and big and bad, and they always got something that they can relate to. Man, in my neighborhood, it wasn't nothing but gangs. And that's the reason right now I'm the killer around here. That means you holding on to the trauma. You holding on to the getting beat up by the gang. You're holding on to the fact that your father wasn't there. You're holding on to the fact that you were abused in some kind of way. You're holding on to it. Let it go. The reason a lot of people don't want to let it go, God said, because your life, you've intertwined so much into that's you now. And you scared. You scared. It's really a fear to put that person behind you and say, God, who am I? But it's okay. Because when you present yourself a living sacrifice to God, you've mastered your trauma. There is nothing more powerful than just giving up. When it comes to life, there is nothing more powerful than to give it up to God. I'm glad I'm done with my life. I'm just going to open the floor up for any questions, anything that somebody want to ask me, or whatever. I am a very open individual. I'm going to be truthful with you. Yes, ma'am.
I think you just gave somebody question for me.
I believe that's what made me a good father. Is I had a father that wasn't the father that I wanted. So I said, I'll make sure that I do all the things that he didn't for mine, you know? And I think that's the only way we should look at traumatic experiences. Or, well, in a just a psychological sense, that's what I will never allow to happen in my house. That's what I will never allow to happen to my children. That's what I will always have my eyes on, you know, to make sure that my son will have to go through what I went through, you know? Now, he's going to have his own thing. It's going to come. I don't know what it's going to be. He's going to have his own thing. But I can say I weeded out the father was feeling for him. I'm sure y'all can tell. I weeded out the father that's feeling for him. And I'm going to weed out the opportunity for what happened to me to happen to my son. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Thank God.
I got the one question you said, forgive but don't forget. So how can you get because as you think about the trauma and stuff, and sometimes it's gonna come back, gonna make you a little mad and stuff, So how can you, balance that?
The biggest thing that I can say, again, is going to be perspective, all right? Because, see, what happened to me has allowed me to save other children from going through the same thing. Mm-hmm. And I'm talking about maybe hundreds. And when I say that, these kids that I mentor, sometimes they'll come and they'll say one thing. My cousin did such and such. And I say, really? Can I talk to your mom about that? Because, see, everything kind of is an escalatory thing, right, especially with a predator. They don't just walk in and just do something. They kind of start with getting your trust. Giving the candy to the kid. Always sitting the kid in their lap. It's called grooming. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so all of that stuff, and when I see a small inkling of that now, I'm able to nip it just like that. Hey, I love you and I love your family. I love your kids. Lil Bree said that Cuz did this. Let me tell you what that means. That means Cuz is actually a predator and he's kind of building this little gang right now. So you might need to keep him away from over there. Oh, well, he babysits my kids sometimes. So you probably need to get you a new babysitter.
Do you have pushback against it a lot when you do that? Nope.
Those families trust me. One thing about life, when God puts you in a position, it's gonna kind of be easy to gain the trust. You know what I mean? These families trust me because I've been with their kids since some of them was 3 and 4 years old. Some of those kids even called me dad. And so it was just a trust that was built over time. I've never in my life had somebody push back against that. Even if they didn't take my advice and something happened, they didn't push back against it. So.
Does that, when you hear of children going through situations, does that affect you personally in a sense, where you kind of take it
it doesn't affect me to the point that I am angry or anything like that. But yes, it's a sad feeling, you know? Because ultimately, now the purity of this young lady is affected because you weren't being watchful like you should have been. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so, especially if I saw it coming, and I warned you, and you still didn't change anything, and then it ends up happening. Now he's in jail, and now you still got that daughter you got to deal with now, and she'll remember that I told you. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So now you have a twofold thing you got to deal with, because now it's your fault as she gets older. It's your fault that I went through that, Mom. Alex told you. You know what I'm saying? So yes, it affects me really, really heavy when I hear that stuff goes on. But you know, I try not to be desensitized to what's going on in the world right now. But it's just a sick world now. You know what I mean? They're trying to teach kindergartners.
Yeah.
I didn't care nothing about sexual stuff when I was kindergarten, but now they want to put it.
You know?
But they want to put it in the books.
Right.
Let my kid grow up. You know, I don't think he's gonna do kindergarten in public school. Probably all the way to the 4th or 5th grade. Let him do something else. I'm serious because I want to protect him, but I want to protect his mind too. You know, so
Because out here you say, I know you just, speak up a couple of stuff. When you hear that happen to the children, do you want to react, go out there and kind of...
it's a righteous anger. And when I say a righteous anger, it's not an anger that says I want to, yes it is. The first anger always is this. Because, yeah, you want to go and just slap that boy, whoever did. You want to knock the fire out of him, but ultimately, when I sit down and have to just kind of, decompress, I realize, even in this the part of life that I say, I'll be like, that part sucks. There are some things that we are not able to stop because it's a part of life for that person. You know what I'm saying? All right? That's why I say, Joe will have his. It won't be mine. It'll be his. He'll go through something one day in life that'll be traumatic to him. It might just be something with a friend at school. If a kid is really have strong love for people, you talk right, and you get betrayed by a friend at school, that does a number on you, right? So yes, it's an anger that comes, but the righteous anger that comes after makes me say, pray, and Alex, you go affect more lives. You know what I'm saying? You go touch more children. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? And it makes me, the righteous anger gives you a stronger ambition to work harder for God. You know what I mean?
Right.
And so that's how you have to see it. It's got to be a perspective thing, ultimately. Because yes, it does make me angry. It makes me angry though when I turn the TV on to see a man go up in the school and shoot up a bunch of kids. It makes me angry to see a man go in the grocery store and shoot a bunch of people in Buffalo, New York. It makes me angry to see it every day in Memphis. Somebody gets found under a bridge dead with a gunshot wound. And when it comes down to it, we realize what the problem is. It's sin, man.
Right. So another question, you do the trauma, she does the boundary stuff. So you teach your children how to set boundaries for themselves, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Since the school wants to be so silly and put all of this extra stuff about sexual things into the school, we teach our young girls. We have a class called Good Touch, Bad Touch that you can start with kindergartners, and even before then if they're understanding, you know what I mean? And once any of these touches happen, let's talk. You know what I mean? And so, as they get older, the teen girls, we teach them the purity code. With the boys, we do the same class that we do with the girls, the Good Touch, Bad Touch class. As they get older, we switch them over to our manhood status classes. And so it's just kind of this gradual thing. And ultimately, we're about to be affecting adults in just a few minutes. Some of these children who are graduating at 18 and say, hey, Alex, I would love to stay and do y'all's program for another 5 years. We're working on something right now that will carry them from 18 to about 23, 24. That's going to be something that's going to continue to grow them in their more mature state, when they can pay attention to it. So, yeah.
All right. got one more question. So you in this position, does you have the right to go to authority, to the police or something, when something happens, violation take place or something?
I don't care about it, right? I do it anyway.
Okay.
Because I don't ever want something to happen and I knew about it and I didn't put it on paper. There are ways that you can file a police report that's just a report, just to say that you filed.
You got it on file, right?
Yes, yes. It's not a, pressing charges or anything like that. But anytime one of my kids tell me something, I do have to file it. I do have a lawyer, Swayze, that works for me. I can put it in his office. I can take it to the police station, wherever else I need to take it, get it notarized. Make sure that the blood not on my hands. You know what I'm saying? If something goes on, I said, I put on there what happened, who I told, and if I talk to the lawyer and he says, well, you need to just go ahead and go to the next step if the parents are not going to go, or we do the setup. We tell the kid, go to your school counselor and tell her that, and the school will blow it up. Yeah, they gonna go on. They gonna go on.
But they trying to cover their own self, huh?
They got to. So you just said it right on in there.
Counselors, doctors, nurses, all those are
They
mandated
are
reporters.
required.
So they have no choice but to report, because if they don't, it's their license and their freedom in their hands. Because I'm a licensed social worker. So
Yeah, and I'm a licensed counselor, and if we don't report it, I had a young lady that, in a school many years ago, she asked me, could she come talk to me, and I said, yes. And y'all, it was the worst thing I ever had to guide an individual through. She came to talk to me, and she said, I need help. And I said, what's going on? She had been raped by 2 men.
How old was she?
14 years old.
Mm.
The 2 men was her 16-year-old brother and her daddy, her biological father. Her mother died when she was 3.
Wow.
I didn't do anything except call the sheriff, and he picked them up, and as far as I know, they are still in state now.
That's good.
Yeah.
I mean,
Because had I not done that, I would never got to work with another child. They pulled my license. If they found out that she told me, and then later the sheriff found out about it, I've been on that school like a hot potato.
Did that affect you?
For me,
For her telling you that?
I would like to break my heart. It just like to kill me. And, I remained a person that she could contact. I told her, I said, you can, talk to me anytime. Because she was already 14 and wasn't like I was going against anything, And she didn't, at that point, she didn't have a parent.
So she went to the state.
Yes.
well, that's gonna go into my time.
So Ms. Rio.
anything else from anybody?
Good job.
Wonderful
Yeah,
job.
good job.
I know exactly. Who do you work with, Alex?
Say that again?
Who do you work with?
Me? I had to create my own because what I want to give the children, the Boys and Girls Club wouldn't allow me to. And, they got all these religious barriers and, so, God allowed me to start my own and Operation Life
You ever
in
do, if
vision.
you ever did decide to just to be there to lend a hand.
I have a 16-year-old son. How can I get him involved?
Give me a shot. Give me a shot, we'll get with them this coming up school year. We got a lot of revamping going on right now. The building that we use is being remodeled. It has a gym in it and, basketball gym and classroom and stuff like that. So we'll be out of a building for about a year, but they're putting about $4 million into the building to get it up to par. It's gonna be really nice when we get back in there. So, this year, I'll see, exactly where we'll be meeting and stuff like that. But, yeah, in about a year, everything will be really, really, really good and nice.
Hey.
So I gotta wait a whole year?
No, no. I still definitely meet with my boys, especially because I think that's what God started me with anyway. The reason I ended up with girls is because the boys had little sisters that they were kind of latchkey at home, out of school, and so when I go get the son, little baby sis got to come with him. And, you know, at one point we had some real toddlers that we had to just let some of the college students they come out and hang with us, you know, kind of babysit. Yeah. So.
Amazing how God leads you, start you here and leads you another way, huh?
Oh yeah, it's gonna happen. As I always say, just kind of trust him. If he gives you a plan, start out with the plan. Don't start looking for money and resources. Just start out with the plan.
That's right.
I started this out helping kids do math on the sidewalk with sidewalk chalk, and it grew from there. Now I got,
How many children now you got?
You and me and Monty. We
seven.
don't have, I said, I thank God we've got you and we've got me and Monty. We don't have enough of us.
How many children do you have?
Just him.
No, I'm talking about in your organization.
Right now we have about 40. I had to go down anyway because of Corona. And they made me go down in numbers for COVID. And so that's why I say a lot of stuff is kind of just coming back, but it's going to change really, really drastically in the next few years because a lot of stuff is happening. A whole lot of stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, big stuff
Yeah.
that I didn't even expect to be happening. So, yeah.
All right, then. Thank you, Alex.
All right.
Be
Do
sure to
anybody
tell them
have
they're welcome to give donations.
Say what?
Be sure to tell them they're welcome to give donations.
Oh, no, what we got going on? I got the people. I'll keep you out of the not This is not something for donation today. I just wanted to get that out.
We'll do something better than that.
That'll work. That'll work, I promise you.
Okay, we are on the last topic for today, and I'm going to be the presenter, and we're going to talk about suffering in silence. But we're going to try to do something a little different. It's going to be open discussion, but I'm also going to share. I'm also going to share some things with you too, as well on today. So we're talking about suffering in silence. And this is something that a lot of people endure because they don't know how to communicate, to say what it is that they're going through. And, you know, because sometimes you don't know. And so,
She's suffering in silence.
so where we think we're communicating, we actually are miscommunicating because we don't know ourselves in depth enough to understand why we're feeling and doing what we're doing. And so 3 of the things that I'm going to talk about today is triggers, capacity, and exposure. So triggers, your capacity, and exposure. And most of the times, we don't even know what our triggers are until we're in a moment. And so this is open discussion. So whenever y'all have a question or y'all want to talk, and I may ask y'all something that you just answered. To me, a trigger is something that usually when you have a trigger, you're going to get defensive or you're going to shut down.
Right.
So you can be in a casual conversation with somebody and they say something and you automatically feel an emotion to that, what they said. And so either you're going to get offended and you're going to defend yourself, or you're going to shut completely down and you're not going to say anything at all. I was the one that shot down and didn't say anything at all because I didn't understand why I was feeling the way I was feeling until I started to do self-reflection and self-evaluation to dig deeper to understand why was this bothering me. Because a lot of times we can say somebody made me mad, but the truth to the matter is no one can make you mad unless you allow them to make you mad. Because if you get angry with someone because of something they said and or did, that means you're triggered. And so you have to be able to know those triggers and be able to understand them, so those triggers don't continue to be in full effect, I guess you say, because most of the times we are held hostage by our emotions because we don't know how to express our emotions. And expressing emotions is very hard, especially if you have never been taught to communicate. And I know at my age, I'm be 45 in November, I had a mom that just didn't talk. She didn't talk. And so I formed my own thoughts in my mind of what things were because I didn't know how to go to people and express those things because it was just too hard to talk about. And then you're in a place where you think no one understands. But when the more you open up and you talk, you realize people understand more than you think they understand because they have similar issues and they can relate and they can give you answers to how to help you overcome whatever it is that you're dealing with. And so I had to learn all this in like my 30s because I had no idea. I am a licensed social worker. And I worked for CPS for 11 years before I started doing therapy and foster care. And going into CPS, you have this mindset where you want to help, and you form this thing in your mind where I'm just going to go in here and I'm going to say the word, or I'm just going to say. But when you get in that position, you see so much.
What's CPS?
Child Protection Services. And I have taken custody of children. But in that job, it's not for everybody. To me, it is definitely a calling that you have to walk in. And Miss Catherine's daughter was my supervisor for a long time, Andrea. And so I went into that job, never wanted the job. When I got in, I understood why I had to be there. But when you go into these homes and these houses, you see people struggle with so many issues. And so for so long, because I didn't know how to communicate a lot of things, working in that field, you become so dissociated with emotions, period. Because you can't do the job and be emotional. Because if you do that, then you're going to take all these emotions home with you, and whoever's in your house is going to feel the effect of those emotions. So the only thing I knew to do was to separate work and home was I dissociated any emotions. I had none. And I didn't understand to hear last week how me not knowing how to communicate and understand these triggers, how it affected my children. Because now that I'm of this age, God is working and revealing so much to me about me. And I have to sit in those places and understand, why is this triggering me? Why is this making me cry? Why is I angry and agitated, irritated? And so I'm digging deeper. And sometimes, this is my daughter, y'all don't know, my grandbaby. And my son, some of the things they do trigger me so bad. And I had to go back and I had to realize that the things that they're doing that's triggering me was my own issues of guilt and shame. Because I had to realize that I worked in a company where I served so many other people, but I wasn't even serving my children. Because I'm thinking in my mind, they in the home with me, they got me, they good. But all along, I was so disassociated with emotions for my job that I was also disconnecting from my children. So they had not an emotionally unavailable mother all their lives. And so now I'm seeing the effects of that because I got one that will act out, and then I got one that shuts completely down. So I have to deal with both worlds. And see, I'm noticing that my son, who's 21, is me, made he shuts completely down and don't express anything. Where my daughter, she acts out. So and so I can deal with the acting out because that's what I deal with at CPS was the acting out. Because most kids in CPS, well, some of them shut down, but a lot of them act out. And people take their behaviors as who they are. But they don't never sit and get to know them to understand, why are you acting this way? And so when people come to them and they get angry, they get defensive, they think that they're bad children. They're not bad children. They're triggered because you said and or did something that bothered them, and they don't know how to express those emotions. And so until somebody comes in and teach them how to express those emotions, they're going to continue to act out because they have no safe place. And if these kids keep going from home to home to home to home because people don't understand their emotions and their triggers, the more they do that, the more it's going to affect them, because every time a placement fails is every time they are broken. Every time trust is gone. Every time I got to do this on my own. It's a constant circle for these children. And that's why for me, I fight for CPS teams, because it's like nobody in the system wants these children. And it's hard. But people got to understand these teams that everybody looking so down on is the one that's going to be in leadership in the next few years. So who's going to take position and stand for these children? Because that, like Alex said, they need community. And this community is going to have to stand together to help these children fight these triggers, because they don't know how to fight them. They ain't never been taught how to fight them. They don't know what it is to fight them. All they know is, I don't know where I'm sleeping or eating the next day.
And they don't know how to react to someone that's willing to fight for them.
I'm going to get to
I'm
that.
sorry.
Well, that's fine. And so what happens is when they go into these homes and they do find someone that loves them, they reject it because it's foreign to them. How can you love me when my own mama didn't love me? How can you want me and my own daddy didn't want me? So it's like it's foreign to them. So rejecting love and not receiving love is normal to them. Whereas we may have grew up with a mother, we may have grew up with a father, so we don't understand their pain because we hadn't sat in their shoes. But in order to be a community, you have to have a spirit of empathy. There is no way you're going to be able to reach anybody if you can't put yourself in their shoes and feel what they feel. And there are some wholehearted people who have to learn empathy. Lord, I was born with it, but some kind of way it shut off, now it's coming back on. But triggers are very important to know because it helps you communicate what it is inside you. But triggers is more so a pure communication to yourself than it is to somebody else, because when we are triggered and we act, then the other person is only going to see our action, our behavior.
Right.
So it's up to you to express why this is bothering me. And that has to be taught. I had to learn communication. I had no idea what it was, and I have to give credit where credit was due. Alex helped me to form those levels of communication, because he was like, he didn't leave you alone until you talk. And so so it's kind of like, he was like, Rhonda, come out of your shell, or whatever he was saying. But I had to learn to bring myself up enough to find confidence in myself to say, this is how I'm feeling. This is what you said made me feel. And then when we open up those avenues and doors, then you will see that the way that person said it was not the way you perceived it. But because you was broken, you perceived it in a broken way. So we have to understand that just because we are broken does not mean that every aspect of life around us is broken. We have to learn to see things holistically so we can understand that everybody is not out to get me.
But it takes you starting going through healing before you can see that, right?
It takes you accepting where you are, and then also acknowledging where you are and wanting to heal. Because sometimes people can say they want to heal, but healing hurts.
Right.
And so when you go through the process of healing and you realize how much that you have held in, that you really just put on the back burner, you really ain't deal with, then God starts bringing all these emotions from the toes all the way up. That's a lot, and it's overwhelming. And so you have to be able to fight through those things, because if you don't learn how to continuously walk through it and heal, you're going to give up and stay stagnant. And that's how we be held hostage to our emotions, is because we don't want to do the work to heal. Because it's so much easier to remain comfortable. It's so much easier to just say, I'm not dealing with it. It's so much easier to walk with 50 walls up and you just,
Although you're unhappy.
dodging everything. So it's so much easier to do that than to fight for peace and joy and freedom. But once you walk in peace and joy and freedom, then you're going to fight to keep, because it ain't nothing in the world like it.
Right.
And it may take away people from you. And I really believe that we have to understand that God knows what's best. If He allowed us to be taken from people that we love, it's a reason behind it. And we have to trust the process. And sometimes we don't always understand the process, but the process that God puts before us is what needs to happen for us to be who He called us to be and not who the world only want to be. And that's not easy, because just this week, I had to realize for myself, just Thursday, I'm going through this little emotional rant. You know, I'm texting my son and my daughter, and I'm apologizing to them for not being emotionally available to them, because I see now how that did them. I see now the effects that they did. So I had to sit there, and I had to sit in my tears. I had to sit in that pain because I did this on a certain level.
Did
And
that
so-
happen to you?
Yes, my mom was not emotionally available.
So you passed it.
It's generational, and most of the time it is generational, like because having a conversation with my mother, same way with her mom. And I'm pretty sure it's same way with my grandmother's mother. So it's generational, but it comes to a time where somebody has to break those barriers, and somebody has to break that, because if it don't, the Bible tells us that the things flow from generation to generation to generation. So at what point do we say enough is enough? I'm tired, and somebody breaks that. Because what God was showing me this week is that sometimes it's so easy to blame other people for our stuff,
Right.
but it was us who walked out of the order. And God was saying to me, revealing to me at my desk this week, and it hit me. I'm beginning to understand why order is order and why order is important. He gave an order. I stepped outside the order. I'm beginning to see, because I stepped outside the order, I made things hard for myself, because there is an order. It's supposed to be husband, wife, baby. I get that. And I know not only am I outside the order, but because I walked outside, it's not like I didn't know. I knew, but I chose to make my life hard for me. And because of that, I had to work extra hard, because I had to work. It wasn't like I wasn't there for my kids. I wasn't a bad mother, I was there, but I worked for CPS. There was a lot of time given to CPS, because in my mind, I had 16 kids on my caseload. And when we go to training, they say these 16 kids are your children. So just like you treat your child, these 16 kids on your caseload is yours. So whatever these 16 kids need, you got to break your back to give it to them. The only thing that can't come to your house. Let's see, if they need to go to the doctors, out of town, trips, flights, whatever, I was responsible for that. And so I neglected my children, sending them to stay with my mama, while I took care of 16 other children. So my kids can see, well, and not only did I take care of those 16, I had a mentoring group that I had girls that was at my house almost every weekend. And so I'm thinking, because I'm doing all this service to all these people, I'm good, but not seeing the brokenness in my own children, because they couldn't even talk or communicate to me, because I was so busy focusing on everything else besides them, because in my mind, they got me. I'm here. But never once did I sit down and have a conversation. See, how are you doing? Where are you at? How are you feeling today? I didn't do that, because in my mind, I'm thinking they got me, so they're good. And so I'm 44 years old, learning from my 21-year-old and my 24-year-old, you wasn't there. You had time for everybody else but us. And because of that, we didn't communicate nothing with you. All because I decided to step out of order, and I had to make a living for them. I was never there. But had I followed the order, this never would have took place in my life. And so when we're outside the order, we bring the chaos. But we want to blame so many other people. But if we take a moment to reflect back, it's because we chose to go outside the order. But I do understand there are some kids who don't choose to go outside the order. Life gave them that. But at the end of the day, there's still decisions that they can make not to continue outside the order if they choose to do that. So you have to want it bad enough to fight for it. And so I'm at a place where I want it bad enough that I'm going to fight for more freedom. I'm free, but I need to rebuild what I broke in my children. But first, I have to take time to nurture that inner child inside me to rebuild that emotional barrier because I didn't know what it was. So I couldn't give to my children what I didn't have. My mom couldn't give to me what I didn't have. And so now I'm having to rebuild that emotional barrier so that I can stand in the gap for my children, because if I don't, even though they're adults, they will never learn to communicate what it is they need and what it is they desire in their life, because they won't have the strength to open it up. Any questions or comments?
So I have a
Here, we
question.
have to get her.
So now with your 16 other children, with your own 2 children, with you, so now you got kind of me all.
I don't have 16 no more. I left CPS, and I'm gonna go to that in a minute. I had to leave because it got to a place. I did 11 years frontline. Y'all got y'all county service. You know, this county service worker, county responsibility, all this stuff. So I left CPS 2 years ago, and I'm gonna go to my next point with capacity. I had got to a place where I was getting too overwhelmed. I was getting so irritated with CPS to the point to where it was getting hard for me to even want to go to work anymore.
But now you wasn't helping the kids anymore per se. It was
When you're dealing with this generation of kids, because they are super smart, and you in order to really deal with them, you're gonna have to have a spirit of discernment, because the way they shake and maneuver, they can get over on you. But if you have a spirit of discernment, you're gonna, like Alex said, if you can instantly capture it, you're gonna be able to instantly capture it. They may not say nothing, but now when I see a kid, I can kind of tell what their emotions are, because I've been in it so long. And so even though I don't have 16 kids on my caseload at CPS, I still deal with foster children in doing therapeutic foster care. And so I still deal with them, but not as intense as therapeutic foster care, because I don't have to be that mother to them. Right now, I'm just kind of like a service or assistance, but I don't have to deal with them in depth like I did with CPS. But coming to capacity, you have to know how much you can hold. And you have to know when your season of something is up.
yeah.
And so if I had stayed, then it would have became too overwhelming for me, because things have changed so much in CPS and dealing with teenage kids. So it got to the place where my capacity was filled there. Like you know, your capacity is the things that you can hold.
Right.
So you got a bowl, it's okay. You got a cup, it's okay. You got a pitcher, it's okay. You got a bell. I had got to the point where my cup was filled. I couldn't do no more. And it was like I wanted to start blaming and accusing and all this stuff, but the truth of the matter, it was time for me to move on. Because there was something on another level that I needed to do. Because anytime God is ready for you to go to another level, you're going to feel that capacity getting filled. Right. And so when you feel that, it could be this time for you to empty out whatever that is, and so God can fill you with Him, and you go to the next level. And that's where I had gotten to with dealing with CPS that I think that my capacity would just feel because I was no longer feeling the love of it like I once did. And when it became a task for me, and I knew it was time to go because me doing it as a job was doing service to those children because I wasn't giving them my full self as I once was. And so before I treat them and abuse them the way they have already done, I would remove myself from the situation. And I could no longer do that to those kids because they had already endured enough of neglect and abuse. And so if I would have just gone to this job just to do a job and my heart wasn't in it like it should be, then I couldn't do that to them. And I think so many people need to understand if your heart is not in it, do not do it.
With your heart being in it like that, did you want to be savior to them too?
I don't want that would be what?
A savior.
No, I didn't want to be a savior, but I did want to be of service. But with me and my capacity being overfilled, I couldn't be of service to them till I worked on me. And so the time that I left CPS was the time that I was getting to know me,
Okay.
if that makes sense.
Yeah.
It was a time where my son was, because you know, when we are parents and we are single parents, our whole life is dedicated to children and work, children and work, children and work. And so my children were gone. Then my son went to college. She was already gone, but my son had went to college. And then I realized, who am I outside of CPS and my children? I had no idea.
So all your life was
Dedicated to CPS and my children. So outside of that, I had no identity. I had to figure out who Rhonda was outside of that. And that's the time that I started to realize I could no longer serve CPS because I had no identity in me. And my limit there had been enough because I had to sit down with me and God to figure out who the heck am I. And I remember driving down the road one day and I heard this voice say, it's time to choose you. I had no idea what that meant, but I soon figured it out. So I had to learn who am I outside of service. So I had to figure those things out. And so I think coming to doing therapeutic foster care, it helped me to figure those things out. Because now I had time. Because with CPS, there is no time. You on the clock 24 hours a day. If you get a call at 12 o'clock and your kid done ran away, no matter how good that sleep is, baby, you got to get out your bed and go to Pump Top and find these kids.
you had to go look for them out.
Yes.
What's your mouth?
If these, okay.
For example, let's just say that she gave her, she would deliver those children to a foster parent, and that foster parent was driving to church or to a dog bed, and the child jumps out of the car, they call her immediately. It's her problem.
Yes.
It's her problem.
Really?
Yes.
So like anything dealing with those children, it was, and they're on our caseload to be county responsibility. We were responsible for everything. If those kids got sick and the social worker, if the foster mom couldn't take them to the doctor or couldn't stay in a hospital with them, we had to make plans to go stay in that hospital no matter if they were there for 45 days. If no one came to rescue us or save us, we had to sit there. Luckily, I had an amazing supervisor that worked with me, but there are some supervisors who don't do that.
So your life pretty much had to go on hold with these children.
Well, yeah. It was like my life was CPS. There was no life. They give you a cell phone, you cannot cut this cell phone off. So not only are you dealing with the children that's on your caseload, these children have parents that you have to deal with. So if these parents going through a crisis and they call your phone, you got to sit there and talk to them on that phone because these clients is your clients because you got their children.
So a lot of parents took advantage of y'all in that sense, whereas knowing that y'all had to.
Yes.
What's your mouth?
And see, people look at CPS and they give CPS a bad name, but y'all have no idea. All people see child protection services is somebody taking folks' kids, but it's a whole process to go behind that. And I want the world to understand CPS cannot take anyone's children unless a judge orders it. Only thing.
You going home and things are out of order and stuff, so you have to get the judge, you have to commit.
If we, what they do, if a report is made, and if a report is made, it's made through a service in Jackson, we get the report, the supervisor, assigns the report to a worker. The worker has to go to the house. Well, first the worker goes to speak to the child because he's supposed to speak to the child first. Everything concerning CPS mostly is answered through children unless it's true. Once you talk to the children, then you have to talk to the parents. You got to coincide the stories. Also, you just don't go with the children, don't go with the parents. You get what they call collateral context. So you have to talk to other people that know this family, that can give you background information. Once you got all this information, you compile it. I go speak to my supervisor, and I tell her, well, this is what the child said, this is what the parent said, this is what the collateral context said. If there's enough evidence of abuse in this collaboration of information, then she says, she'll be like, well, what do you want to do? And I said, well, we need to do such and such. There are certain levels, like you can do a prevention case, you can open up a case with monitor family, but like when it's sexual abuse and all that type of stuff, and we call the judge gives order to take the children. We can't take nothing without a judge saying take custody and signing an order.
Because that's the stereotype, like you said, is that county service come in and they gonna get these children.
And everybody thinks that that's what child protection service is seen as, is baby snatchers, and we take people, they take people's children. No, it's a whole system behind taking someone's children. And if someone's children is taken, you best believe that evidence has been proven, and there is some allegation of truth in all of it.
Okay. So now you have to get a place for now, right?
And once you take them, you got very few choices. And you can send them to a foster home, or you can send them to a facility, or you can send them to a thing called acute care. And acute care is a place like the kids are acting out real bad, like you can send them to acute care, and acute care gets them stabilized. And once they come out of acute care, then you can send them to a foster home or a group home, something like that. But wherever they place, you are responsible. I have traveled to Gulfport, Mississippi once a month to see children. I have traveled to Alabama once a month to take children. So wherever they are, you are responsible.
Like what she's saying, like it has to be the judge. It is the court system that removes the child. But one time I was about 8.5 months pregnant with my own child, my first child, and this couple's child was removed. It's usually the county that the child is removed in is the county that the social worker works in. That's what happened to me. When my child got there, that time they kidnapped my child. I had to go through the trauma of that man coming in my home, knocking me out to get my child, to steal my child. They stole everything that was given to me as my child, and then they came to steal my baby. I won't tell you the rest of it, it's something private. They didn't get it, let's put it that way.
You protect yourself, huh? You protect what's yours, huh?
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I burned 1 foot in a shoe.
And that's what you have to, and like what I was telling y'all before, like I had become dissociated. It didn't bother me to take children. I didn't care if the parents were crying, a kid was crying. I was so dissociated with emotions that it didn't bother me because all I saw was that the kids needed saving. I didn't think about the trauma that these children was experiencing being taken from their home.
Although they was going through trauma at home.
They would much rather do the trauma at home than to be separated from their parents and go to somebody's stranger's house. But as a CPS worker, you only look at safety. Because anytime you're in service, whether you're police, a doctor, the first core of action is safety. So you have to do whatever it is to make sure that those children are safe. You can't think about the trauma. You got to make sure that they are safe and that this harm can no longer happen to them. And so I got so desensitized from emotions and disassociated with it because it didn't even bother me to take a child from their parents when I saw that the parents wasn't good for them. I didn't think about the trauma that they was going to experience. I didn't try to make things work because to me, you don't need these children. And all along, now looking back, what could have been done differently to save that family? What services could have been implemented to help this child not experience the trauma that was implemented? And so now I think about that because now I'm dealing with trauma. And now I'm looking at these children, and don't get me wrong now, it's some parents who gave their kids and didn't even want them.
Yeah.
Like they'll give it to CPS because they can't handle them and they don't want them, they want their own lives. But you know what? It had come so difficult. Like when I took a kid, I could tell whether or not that mom was gonna fight for their child to come back to her. And they do go through adoption process in CPS, and sometimes it is better families. I'm not gonna lie about this, but it's still hard for the children until they get the services and the counseling and the therapy that they need to help them to go through those trauma issues to put some voice to it.
So what happened with you to make you realize that, okay, this is not what I'm doing, it's not the right thing to do? Something happened?
Nothing happened. It was more like a revelation. And I think that's what happens, but sometimes we can ignore those things because we think it's us. But it was kind of like my revelation came when I thought about the children of Egypt. I'm just going to be honest with you. That's what came to my mind is the children of Egypt when God was delivering them from slavery. And it took them 40 years for an 11-day journey. And I sat there and I said, I can stay here and continue to do this work, but this is not what God is calling me to do. I didn't want to spend 40 years in a place wandering when I knew that there was something glorious for me in 11 days, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So I decided that I want to take an 11-day journey and not the 40-year journey, if that makes sense. I needed to be free from it because it was time for me to be free from myself.
Because a lot of people stay on jobs that they don't like because they scared of the changes or insecurity or,
Fear of failure, fear of the unknown. It was so much. I was comfortable with CPS. Like I could go in there and I could do that job with my eyes closed. It was gotten to the place that even when new workers came in, I was training the new workers. Because I knew it, like there was nothing in the computer system. It was nothing in there I couldn't do. But I knew it was getting troublesome because when Andrea came to me and she spoke to me, and she was like, Rhonda, you're off your course. And this when I knew that I needed to sit down with myself because when she said that to me, it was like it triggered me so bad I just broke down. And she was like, what's wrong?
You knew your time was up, but you were still trying to go on.
I was still trying to go on. Until one day Andrea spoke to me and she said, you're off course. You're not getting your work done the way you need. And she said, either you can sign this paper or you can get on track. And it triggered me so bad that I knew that I had reached my capacity. And it was time for me to journey to somewhere else because my work there had been done. Like the capacity was up. And so in order for me to get to the level where God had me, I had to empty myself at that point in my life of me and allow God to fill me with him and then step in another capacity. Because the more you let things go and release the negative is how God refills it with the positive, and then you're able to expand. But if you stay hostage in a place that you know that's no longer serving you, then you don't get what you need to go to the next level. It's like every level is an emptying, and then God fills, and then you go to the next. And then you go and you reach that capacity, then God empties you to something, then He fills you, then you go to the next. And it's like that's how your territory enlarges, is because you keep emptying what's negative, and God fills you with positive, and then He expands you. Am I making sense?
Really? So, with you working with government, with county, did they allow you to talk God to the children?
Yeah, you could, but it's only if they wanted it.
Okay.
You can't force them to want what
Right.
you want them to have. And so if the kids tell you I don't believe in God, then you're gonna have to come with an easier way to do it. Okay, then you don't gotta believe in God, but let's talk about you. Because you always can implement positive in people without mentioning God.
Yep.
So it doesn't take you to say, well, God said this to you. No, you can just simply ask the question and say, well, do you know how wonderful you are? Do you know how magnificent you are? Do you know you are fearfully wonderful? I mean, so you don't have to mention God to build people up emotionally. But I wish people would stop thinking that you just have to go tell somebody, this is what God said. No, just say, well, this is what I feel about you. You know, I was just thinking, and I think that you're going through this. Even though it's revealed to you through the Spirit, they don't know what the Spirit is. They ain't never been taught this. So you have to use wise words to help them understand, to change their subconscious from negative to positive. And it's only hard to do because you ain't did it for yourself. And so I had to learn to nurture me in order to be able to nurture someone else. And that's the stage that I'm still in, because I'm learning that my nurturing not only frees me, but it's going to free my children. It's like a domino effect. If it's freeing you, it's going to free whatever's connected to you.
Right.
And then if they free, then whoever connected to them going to be free. So it's like a domino effect. So that's where we go to exposure, because some of these kids in foster care are exposed to a lot. When I say, when y'all watch Law and Order SUV, that is real life. I had no idea of the things that went on in homes till I started working for Child Protection Services, and it was so mind-boggling till it got to the place to where nothing surprises me anymore. Nothing. Because when I started seeing the molestation of children by family members and biological fathers, when I started seeing children being beat black and blue from head to toe, and you go in the house and you talking to the African, well, I got beat, I'm fine, ain't nothing wrong with me, sir. This is abuse. This is beyond a spanking. If this child's eyes are black and blue and they got bruises and cuts from head to toe, this is beyond a spanking. This is abuse. But in the African American community, it is hard to get people to understand that there is a difference between discipline and spankings and abuse, because abuse to them is normal because they grew up with drunk daddies that beat them. They grew up with daddies who beat their parents. So all this stuff is normal to me. So I had to really reframe my whole mind to know that wrong, because you didn't experience this does not, and it's not normal to you, does not make it not normal to them. This is who they are. This is what they know. So you have to step back, put yourself in this position, in their shoes. What would you want if this was you?
Was it hard for you to do that, you know, to seeing abuse go on? So how do I handle this?
In the beginning, yes. Because I thought it was just the craziest, strangest thing ever. And I was, and something, you know, in the beginning, the first 2 or 3 years, I would talk about it because I'm like, these mamas crazy. How they do their kids like this? They'll never be nothing. So I'm just, and so but then I had to change my perspective and be like, oh my, and I started having conversations. Again, I started having conversations. And when I started having the conversations, I was like, oh my God, the trauma, the abuse. So what they were displaying to me was the pain of their past. and the drinking, and we always look at the behaviors, but behaviors are nothing but a byproduct of the pain.
Right.
And so when I started opening up, having conversations, well, tell me about your childhood and the horrific stories that was told, I began to see that this is their normal. This is truly all they know. So I had to form ways to build them up to understand there is so much more for you in life than this. You don't have to endure this. And so I started encouraging them, because if y'all don't know, affirmations go so far. Just a simple "you're beautiful" can brighten a person's world up. Because they'll say, "Oh my God, you call me beautiful. I've never been called beautiful." And if that thing lights in them, then they're going to continue to that world is just going until their subconscious changes, and they're going to believe that they're beautiful. But it starts with you. And I don't think people understand how important it is for you to be healed, because your healing is going to be conducive to somebody else healing. But it's easy, like I said, to remain comfortable. And when we see these, we don't know who foster kids that we come across, because it's confidential. So you ain't gonna hear no foster child saying, "I'm a foster child." You're not gonna hear that, because to them that's a mark on me. Who put that mark on you? So you have to be willing to treat people truly how you want to be treated. And that is something that I learned. I wouldn't want somebody to treat me this way, so why would I treat them that way? So I'm in a place where I really want to amplify love in everything about me. Like, I don't want to be another trauma or trigger or pain for anybody. But in order to walk in love, you have to be able and open and healed to receive love. And that's hard when you've been rooted in hate, neglect, abuse, and pain. And so it's things that we have to take time to learn. But in all that, when we come exposed to something different, then we do different. But we have to open ourselves up to be exposed to something different. And so, but a lot of times we stay on the background because we don't feel like it's for us. And we don't feel like I can do it. Or we don't feel like I have the strength to maneuver through that. But in reality, God allows us to be exposed to different things so we can learn different things. And we have to be open enough to step out on that water to receive all that God has for us. And it may come, we don't trust people, because a lot of people don't trust people. And that's okay. Trust has to be earned and learned, because people have been so let down, or betrayed, or backstabbed, and it's been so much more negative than positive. But I'm telling you, God will send one person in your life that can change the whole trajectory and atmosphere of who you are. And they can basically, by having a freaking conversation, can change so much in life. When I say something, I don't like the way you said it, because it made me feel. But so people are so detached from feelings, they don't even know what it made them feel. All they know is they were angry. But why did it make you angry? Well, it made me angry because when this happened to me with my uncle, because I know one girl could not stand to take showers or baths because this when the abuse happened. And if a foster care is forcing her to take a shower or bath, what you think she's gonna do? She's gonna cut up and she's gonna act out, because I got to get out of her house because this bringing back too much.
So simple thing to be say, okay, well, why do you want to take a bath then?
It's best to ask questions to get an understanding. The Bible tells us, in all our getting, get an understanding. Once you have an understanding, you can go through things so much more easily.
Right. And so one of the things I'm seeing is, in order to be a county worker, CPS worker per se, you almost have to be here yourself in order to help
You have
with them,
Any service job.
When I went to counseling to become a counselor, there's one thing that they told us at OBS. They said, you first have to make sure that you come to full, recognition of your individual rights. So
Right.
you have to heal yourself.
Because if you don't, you're gonna project your issues on other people.
I want you to know you're looking at a person that makes a major difference in so many kids' lives.
I can
But
believe
they're not
it.
gonna forgive her as long as they live. She has made a difference in so many people's lives.
I love working for CPS, but I knew that I had to be empty and filled because there's something greater that God needs me focused on. And I couldn't keep that. When I left, it gave me space to sit with myself.
So now you can see where CPS kept you
Oh,
for your
yeah.
next level to where you're at now.
Yeah. It's always going to be connected some type of way. So CPS gave me like the foundation to teach me about trauma. And so with this job I am now, it gave me the foundation to be able to sit with myself because life was not as hectic with CPS where I am now. So I'm able to take time with myself to figure things out. And so now when I leave this job, because I know I'm going to end up leaving it, it's going to open up another avenue that I can really come back and do the work that I really want to do for CPS.
Okay, so you want to go back to CPS?
I don't want to go back to CPS, but I want to be of service to CPS in helping teen foster kids
So how can you do that?
with my own, like Alex.
Okay. But you have some kind of therapy section now, right? Some kind of.
I do jewels, but I'm gonna put that on the back burner too, because I need to sit and focus to get to where God has ordered me to be, if that makes sense. Because now I know where my target population is. I have to sit in here so I can perform it the way it needs to be performed and not the way I want it to.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
Okay.
Any more questions or comments? Anything about communication, triggers, capacity, exposure? We did have one extra portion, and it said on the thing, if you have talked about boundaries and people don't, I got a little bit of portion. Show my child. How do I reinforce boundaries without fighting?
Just plain communication.
Just plain communication.
What was the question I missed? It?
How do I reinforce boundaries without fighting? Anybody else have any questions or comments? Now you said something today about communication. What you said you want to learn about?
I expect to learn the blueprint on how to communicate properly as well as learning and understanding the relationship dynamics.
Okay, you have any questions concerning that? Anybody else have any questions?
So, Mr. Durana, what do you do when you talking to somebody and they don't want to open up to you?
You have to let them do it when they're ready.
So you have to.
You just be like, okay, when you're ready, I'm here. Because if you try to force it, they're gonna push away from you because you inflicting their boundary. That's their boundary. If they're not ready to talk, you have to be okay that they're not ready to talk. And you have to move away. When they're ready, they will let you know they're ready. But children or people are only gonna be ready when it's a safe place. If they don't feel you safe, they're not gonna talk.
So I said, so you have to maintain that steadiness with them. That
You have to remain
consistency.
consistent and available. Because they may wake you up at 3 o'clock in the morning and say, can I talk to you? Your phone may ring at 3 o'clock in the morning. I just need to vent for a minute, or I just need to talk. And you have to be willing to sit in those places and selfless sacrifice, because that's what love is. Love is a selfless sacrifice. So are you willing to sacrifice your sleep in order to allow someone to be that safe place for someone to heal? So you have to know your boundaries, because you have to know, am I able to even handle this? If you're not able to handle it, then you need to be upfront and honest and say, well, I really can't relate, but there's somebody else I know that I can connect you to. So you don't need to be trying to give them something if you know that this is not true for you. You have to be able to relate to the pain. You have to be able to give a word in due season. But so many people who come to people who need to talk, they'll tell, well, I'll pray for you. No, I don't need you to pray for me. I need help now.
Yeah.
So what if you are the answered prayer?
Yeah.
So are you willing to let go of yourself in order to be an answered prayer for somebody else? And a lot of people these days, they just not ready to do that because I need my sleep, I need my money, I need my time, and I ain't finna give it to you. But when you walk in love, you see the greater need, and you're willing to give that greater need.
Yeah.
Despite what you got going on. But I ain't saying come to the capacity where you're giving more than you're able to. That's where you have to know your boundaries and walk in authenticity and know that I can't handle this. And that's where we also suffer in silence because we keep putting more and more and more and more and more on us. And we know doggone well we can't handle no more. But we keep putting it on us because we just got to save the world. When you know that you are filled to your capacity, stop trying to give people something that you know that you don't have. If you know you can't do it, don't do it. And just be honest that I can't do that right now. If they get mad, okay.
So take a backbone to do that social service done.
Oh yeah. Because honey, those clients play victim and they will make you feel like you the scum of the earth. If you don't do what they tell you to do, especially parents that's addicted to drugs. They can play victim and baby, they can tell some stories that'll make you want to weep. But if you don't see the spirit behind the person and what's going on, because they do manipulate. And they can manipulate like a pro.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm saying. But when you know and you are empty and you have discernment, you'll be able to catch that and be like, okay. But then there's sometimes when people come in and your heart will go out to them because they are talking to you from a raw, pure place. But there's some people who are expert manipulators.
Yeah.
They manipulate to the core and that's just who they are. And that's not only in clients and CBS, that's in relationship with men and friends too.
Right.
Because if you're a friend that always give and you give and you give and you give, but you never get nothing in return, then you need to reevaluate that relationship and or friendship. Because when you are in true, authentic friendship, things are reciprocated. And it's not, and most of the time it don't have to be asked. They do it because I love you and you're my friend.
Right.
And even if you're in a relationship and then man, you constantly giving, and you're not getting nothing in return, then you may need to evaluate this relationship. Because when God is something that God has ordained is in order and it's reciprocal. I just believe that. It's reciprocated. Because why would God have you struggling and fighting and going through all this if this is for you? So when it's beneficial to you, when it's building you, when it's making you a better person, then those are the things that you need to sacrifice for. And I've gotten to a place in my life that if my sacrifice is bringing me to the subtraction and the negative, I need to reevaluate that. But if the sacrifice is multiplying me, then I stay there, if that makes sense. So you really have to know what the benefits is in it for you. And it ain't that you being selfish, it's that I got to protect my peace. I got to protect my joy. I got to protect what God has given me, and I have to do it in wisdom. Because anything that you don't know the purpose of, you neglect and you abuse. But when you know the purpose of something, then you want to protect it with everything you got because it means something to you. And when you know your worth and you know your value, you are not going to discount yourself for the likeness of nobody else. Because if they're for you, then they're going to be willing to pay the price for you. Just like Christ did. Because we meant something to him. He paid the price for us and gave his life. and thought nothing to it because it brought him joy knowing that we were going to come back to him. That's love. So even in Christ doing that, there's a form of that should be in people that you connect yourself with because they're going to be willing to pay the price for the value of you. You very rarely see a Louis Vuitton bag on sale. Why? Because Louis Vuitton know his value. Either you finna pay this $1,250 or you ain't gonna get this purse.
And that's the thing in the sense, like, you're helping somebody, you help them to a point. You understand what I'm saying? Now they're gonna ride because you're helping them in the beginning, but then you come to the stop sign and say, okay, now you gotta get off.
And there gonna be some people where God may send to you and you be that circle, and I get that. But when it comes to the place where they know that they can get this from you and they start manipulating you for the stuff, and you may go, wait a minute.
Yeah.
I'm not saying don't help people,
Right.
but use wisdom in your helping.
Right.
And so what I've done is start asking God, like, what do you want me to do for this?
Right.
And another thing you can do is ask people, what is it that you need? Because we're trying to help them, but they just want $5 for a chicken box.
Right.
So you have to ask people, what is it that you need? And if they say, I'm hungry, okay, well, I can get you some food. Because they ain't if they're hungry, they ain't studying nothing else beyond the hunger.
Right.
And so until they are physically fed, they ain't hearing nothing you talking about.
This is what it said, like, to win a person to God, almost like that. If you feed them, then you can almost, or you take care of their needs, then you can talk to God, to them about God, if you take care of their needs, see they need help.
And that's spiritually and it's natural because even there's a Maslow hierarchy of needs that we learned in social work, and at the bottom of it is those physical needs. Because ain't nobody thinking about purpose if they ain't got a house to build in.
Right.
Ain't nobody thinking about building no business if they can't even pay a light bill. So you have to follow those order of needs even to get somebody to think, because their mind is, how am I going to make it the next day? And so we go, even with dealing with foster kids or whoever, we want them to be this up here, and they can't even figure out this down here. How is that even possible?
Well, I'm gonna start asking questions because I can ask questions. People ready, they tired, ready to go home.
Okay, just for you to cut off. But if that's all that we have, then that's all that I have too. Any questions or comments? Alex, you last remark? Miss Mary, got anything to say? Miss Catherine?
Just thank you for having me here.
All right, dear. Well, that's the end of it.